Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name's Beth Cohen, and today we'll be talking about urban farming in Barcelona. Imagine a city where fresh lettuce, tomatoes and even strawberries grow on rooftops, just above busy streets and apartment blocks. Well, that's the reality of Barcelona's urban farming movement. But how do these farms actually work? What role do they play in our food system? And how do they compare to traditional farming methods? We'll get into all of that in this week's episode, in which we visit Barcelona's rooftop vegetable gardens, as well as a traditional rural farm just outside Barcelona. Joining me in the studio today is Gigi Giulia. Hi, Gigi.
Hi, Beth. I'm excited to get into this topic.
Okay, so before we dive into the specifics, let's start with the basics. What exactly is urban farming?
So, urban farming is essentially the practice of growing food in cities, instead of in rural or more typical farming areas.
Now, that's not a new concept, because city people used to have allotments, which are small plots of land on the outskirts of the town where you can grow your own vegetables. However, as cities have grown, the travel times to get out of the city have become unfeasible, especially if you want to go and water your tomatoes twice a day. So people have looked for more creative solutions in terms of space, and urban farming now often happens on the roofs of buildings.
Yeah, so this type of farming includes these so-called rooftop gardens, but another good example are community gardens in public spaces. And the idea of this whole movement is to produce food closer to where people live, and with that trying to reduce transportation emissions and also making cities more self-sufficient.
And Barcelona's been seeing a lot of these types of initiatives, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the city has launched several projects over the years, with one of them being, and I think this is a very applicable name, the Rooftop Garden. And also there's L'Hort del Mercat, which can be translated to the Market Garden. And this one is actually an initiative of the Barcelona City Council in collaboration with the Municipal Institute of Markets.
And it's not just about sustainability, is it? Because there's also a big social aspect to these initiatives.
Yes, definitely. So these projects provide loads of opportunities, and they also encourage things like community participation.
So people who live in the city can just go out and grow their own vegetables, learn about sustainable food practices and reconnect with nature, all whilst living in a dense urban area.
Yeah, totally.
And to understand how these rooftop farms actually work, Gigi, you've visited two of the leading urban farms in Barcelona, the Rooftop Garden and L'Hort del Mercat. Let's hear how you got on.
Rooftop gardens are transforming unused spaces into vibrant ecosystems, benefiting not just the environment but also the people who tend them. Urban farming initiatives are proving that these green spaces can do more than just grow food. They can grow community, inclusion, and also well-being. But what exactly makes these projects so impactful? To find out, I spoke with Ferran Urgell, who works for the Municipal Institute for People with Disabilities in Barcelona.
This initiative is thought mainly for people with disabilities. We know that for a fact, actually, and we've done some research as well during all these years, that these kind of projects are a huge benefit for their quality of life. We actually conducted a specific research on the benefits of the people that were using this space against the people that with the same profile that were not coming here. You have to take into account here they come people with mental disorders, people with intellectual disabilities, people with physical impairments, different profiles, as I said. And we found out with this research that the quality of life of these people was highly increased. There's no noise up here, and there's no pollution, and you have another side of the city, as you can appreciate as well. So all these kind of things, it's a place of calm as well. And the fact that you know that you're helping someone else, of course, and working with the essentials of life, which is having food, no?
A 2018 study confirmed what many already suspected. Urban rooftop gardening isn't just about sustainability. It has real, measurable benefits, particularly for people with intellectual disabilities and mental health disorders. At the rooftop garden, the impact is clear, but it isn't the only initiative that makes a difference. In Valdebron, the Market Garden is creating a space where people of all ages, and especially elderly people, can come together, stay active, and connect with nature. I spoke with Arnau, a coordinator at this urban farm, to find out the aims and objectives of this project.
We basically produce relationships and agrofitness and pleasure. We also produce most of the plants you can imagine from your diet. It comes people mainly from the neighborhood, also students, some collaborations with some associations, and also visitors. From the people that works more often in the gardens, probably half of it's retreat people. We bring a little bit of rurality inside the city, also attracts biodiversity, insects and birds mainly. We promotes contact with nature for people that is quite healing. So basically it's nature inside the concrete landscape.
These green rooftops are more than just urban farms. They are spaces of connection, healing and transformation. Whether through large-scale projects or individual initiatives, urban farming is redefining city life in Barcelona, proving that even in a dense metropolis, there's still room to grow.
That was really interesting. Gigi, what was it like to visit these farms and see them in person?
Well, it was actually really nice because you might know that I'm from a small village in the Netherlands, and it's a farmer's village. So when I moved here to Barcelona like 2 months ago, I kind of missed the connection with nature, and I really found it when I went to these farms. So it was just a nice little piece of nature in the city.
And these rooftop farms have a lot of benefits. Can you explain some of them?
Yeah, well, there are actually quite a few. So first, they help to reduce the environmental impact of food production by cutting down on transport emissions. And that has a simple reason. It's because they're more local, of course.
So the food's consumed right where it's grown.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a bit of a drop in the ocean, but I feel like it's still worth mentioning. And then second, they make cities greener, which can help with, for example, improving the air quality.
Yes, and that'll also help to control the air temperature by insulating buildings.
So what do you mean with that?
Okay, so in summer, concrete buildings absorb heat during the day, releasing it as they cool down at night, which makes our summer nights here in Barcelona quite stifling.
Oh.
However, yes, you've got that to look forward to. However, if you have a rooftop garden, it provides shade during the day and the plants provide protection from the heat, so cooler nights.
Okay, well, I'm going to buy some plants for my little apartment then. Okay, and then back to the benefits. So the third thing is they promote healthy eating by giving a number of people access to fresh produce, which hasn't been grown using chemicals and pesticides.
Yes, although there is city pollution, and we'll be talking more about that later.
Yeah, but overall, I feel like these things combined, in a city like Barcelona, it is very important to be conscious of the things that we as inhabitants of the city should collectively try to improve.
And beyond the environmental benefits, rooftop gardens also help to strengthen communities.
Yeah, exactly. So community gardens, they bring people together. They also educate kids about food, and they create these green spaces in places that might otherwise be concrete jungles. So the initiative of the rooftop garden, like we've heard Ferran say in the first report, it is an initiative that really, really benefits people's lives and makes these gardens a vital thing for Barcelona's entire community.
In fact, the benefits of urban gardening have been scientifically proven, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. So Ferran's initiative is designed for people with disabilities. And in 2018, he conducted research which proves that urban rooftop gardening in general improves quality of life. And it is especially beneficial for those with intellectual disabilities, but also mental health disorders.
And L'Hort del Mercat in Vall d'Hebron is also a community project which is having a beneficial impact on residents' lives.
Yes, it really has. So when I was there, I could genuinely feel the sense of community. There were also a lot of elderly people working there, and I think that's amazing because thanks to this initiative, they have a place where they can go and work together, where they can stay active, and also where they can have access to fresh and healthy foods, and also even have a little chat, which is important because these people often struggle with loneliness.
So they can socialise as they enjoy the fruits of their labour.
Yeah, wonderful, right?
But of course, urban farming isn't without its challenges. Regulations can make it very difficult to set up new projects.
Yes, so Barcelona is still figuring out some of the legal aspects. For example, there are zoning laws, there are food safety regulations, and there are water usage policies that urban farms need to navigate through. So the products that are harvested, they cannot be sold. And that means that all the fruits and vegetables these farms and gardens produce, they are for the people who planted them and grew them.
So there's no economic model behind it.
No, not yet at least. And this is because the sale of produce from the rooftop farms is generally prohibited due to already existing urban policies and regulations. So these regulations, or better said, urban laws, they do not officially recognize farming in the city, and it makes it illegal to sell the food that they have grown.
So this creates another challenge as they can't make money from their crops, so it's much harder to keep these projects running.
Well, yes and no. So though these urban farms are not able to sell their produce, the city still supports them in other ways. So like the funding urban agriculture projects receive from the Barcelona City Council. But apart from organizations, projects, and communal farms, there are also individual people farming on their rooftops.
Right, and one of those individual pioneers is Robert Strauss, who started his own urban farm right in the heart of the city. Let's hear his story.
Not all urban farming projects in Barcelona come from big institutions. Some start with individuals who simply want to make the most out of the space they have. Robert Strauss, an American living in Barcelona, did exactly that, turning his own rooftop into a thriving garden.
I have been gardening for many years before I moved to Barcelona, and when my family and I came to Barcelona, we looked around and we couldn't find any place to garden. And then we were up in Cosarola one day, we looked out and we saw all the red rooftops of Barcelona. We were fortunate to have a house that had a lot of patios, so we decided that we would try to do it on the roof. And now we can see that I have a lot of space all over the house and in the backyard as well, where I'm growing things. It's more of a hobby, a vocation. In the sense of sustainability, there are a lot of people who talk about urban farming and urban agriculture being more sustainable. It's true, this is really kilometer zero.
For Strauss, urban farming is more than just growing food. It's about sustainability, self-sufficiency, and making use of the city's overlooked spaces. But despite its benefits, rooftop gardening isn't always easy. There are many logistical and legal obstacles that still prevent people from transforming the thousands of empty rooftops in Barcelona into green spaces.
There are a lot of obstacles that have prevented people from doing urban gardening on the rooftops, even though there are so many thousands of square meters on which it could be done.
While his garden remains a personal project, Strauss also volunteers weekly at L'Hort del Mercat, blending his individual initiative with larger urban farming efforts. His story shows that whether on a community scale or a personal one, every rooftop garden contributes to a greener Barcelona.
Thanks for that report, Gigi. I really like Robert Strauss's initiative, making use of all the available space to bring greenery to the city. And of course, all of those plants producing oxygen will be beneficial in terms of combating some of the carbon dioxide fumes in the city.
Yes, absorbing CO2 and also producing oxygen.
And whilst we're talking about air quality, is the proximity to city contamination harmful for the vegetables and therefore for the health of the people who consume them? For example, I know that my mum never let me eat blackberries which grew too close to the road because of the contamination. Gigi, do you have any information on this?
Yeah, so urban agriculture can be contaminated by chemicals and pollutants from human activities and industrial processes. So these contaminants can pose health risks. So urban farmers, they have methods to monitor and manage soil toxicity.
What are these methods?
Okay, so regular soil testing is important to detect harmful contaminants such as heavy metals and especially lead, which is common in urban environments. Then certain plants can be used to absorb harmful substances from the soil, and this is called soil remediation, and sunflowers are known to be very good for this.
That's fascinating. I love sunflowers, but I didn't know that they were so useful. Okay, Gigi, so how do these small urban farms compare to the more traditional rural farms?
Yeah, so the main difference is a pretty simple one. So that will be the scale of these farms. Urban farms are much smaller and they focus on growing food for local consumption, whereas rural farms, well, they usually produce larger quantities for sale.
But there are also some key similarities, right?
Yeah, definitely. So both types of farms, they strive for sustainability and efficiency. and they share common challenges such as land availability and climate change.
Okay, so while urban farms bring innovation and creative use of space, e.g. rooftops, rural farms offer large-scale production and more traditional agricultural expertise.
Yes, by working together and thus complementing each other, they can create a more resilient food system, combining efficiency and also sustainability of urban agriculture with the resources and expertise of rural farming.
One example of a farm which does just this is La Rural de Collserola, which is located just 15 kilometres outside of Barcelona in the Collserola mountain range. We spoke with owner and director Alfred March to hear his perspective.
Just beyond the city of Barcelona, in the natural park of Collserola, a group of farmers is bringing rural life back to an area that once thrived with agriculture. La Rural de Collserola is more than just a farm. It's a cooperative dedicated to sustainable food production, self-sufficiency, and community living.
Nosotros nos llamamos La Rural porque uno de nuestros propósitos es ruralizar Collserola.
We call ourselves La Rural because one of our goals is to ruralise Collserola, which is a peri-urban natural park that historically always had rural life, but it lost that in the 1960s and 70s. A bit of our purpose, as part of the new wave of farmers, is to recover fields. And that's not just about restoring cultivated land, but also reviving all the rural life that historically existed here.
Comenzó por pasión y por ganas de tener un trabajo que nos hiciera feliz.
It started out of passion and the desire to have a job that made us happy. La Rural is a comprehensive project because it is actually made up of two cooperatives. One is the Workers' Cooperative, which farms and produces, and the other is the Users' Cooperative, which manages the housing on a farm that we acquired through a public bid here in Collserola.
Es un proyecto integral porque abarca todos los aspectos que sustentan la vida de las familias que formamos parte de este proyecto.
It's an integral project because it covers all aspects of life for the families that are part of it. Production, labour, income, as well as domestic economy, which results in self-consumption. That means not everything we grow is for sale. Some of it is for our own consumption.
Nosotros principalmente producimos hortaliza fresca.
We mainly produce fresh vegetables, lettuce, leeks, spring onions, tomatoes, all kinds of fresh produce. We also have a small production of figs. Additionally, we have some livestock with a herd of goats, but our main focus is vegetables. All our production is certified organic.
Todo lo que producimos es certificado ecológico, sí.
Unlike traditional farms, this one is structured as two cooperatives. One is focused on farming and production, and the other on housing and shared living. The project integrates every aspect of daily life, from growing organic vegetables to creating a sustainable livelihood for its members. But despite their success, the farmers face a major challenge.
Bueno, una de las primeras dificultades es el acceso a la tierra.
One of the biggest difficulties is accessing land, which is a major barrier for new farmers. This is a key issue in the mountains. Land is concentrated in the hands of a few people, mostly with real estate interests.
By combining farming, sustainability and cooperative living, La Rural is working to reclaim the region's agricultural past, proving that even in the shadow of a metropolis, rural traditions can be revived for the future.
So after speaking with Alfred, it's clear that both urban and rural farming have their roles to play. But what about the future? Where is urban farming headed?
Well, if cities like Barcelona continue to support these initiatives, we could actually see more rooftops filled with farms and gardens.
And as cities become more populated, local food production could become even more important.
Yes, so the future of urban farming will depend on things like investment, legislation, and public interest. So if more people engage with these projects, they could become a real solution to some of the challenges that we're facing in food production, and maybe up to a certain extent, even climate change.
Right, it's not just a trend. It could be a vital part of the future of our cities. It's time now for our Catalan phrase of the week. Gigi, what do we have?
So this week we have que té un hort té un tresor.
He who has a garden has a treasure. That's a really positive expression for those who appreciate cultivating plants.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a phrase about the value of gardening and the rewards it can bring.
Both literally and metaphorically. This week on Filling the Sink, we've been talking about urban farming in Barcelona, its impact, its challenges and its future. Thank you to everyone who spoke with us. And of course, thanks to you, Gigi, for joining me today.
Thank you, Beth. It was a pleasure.
That's all for today. Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't done so already. We'll be back again next Saturday with another exciting episode. On behalf of all the team here at Catalan News, I'm Beth Cohen, wishing you a great weekend. Fins aviat. Adeu.